folks, welcome. Today we are going to talk about electric motorcycles in NYC and who pays after a crash. Welcome to a new informative segment of Mototalks with Mitch and Mel for the law firm of Proner and Proner. I'm your host and fellow writer, Mel McGrew. And as often as we can, we will sit down with a personal injury expert himself and writer, Mr. Mitch Proner, a personal injury attorney with over 30 years of experience, here to answer your questions or any interesting topics that you might find useful in your personal injury world. And remember, folks, if you need to contact us, all consultations are free and confidential. Call us at any time at 1-800-321-1234. How you doing, Mitch?
Pretty good. How about yourself, Mel?
Not too bad, not too bad. I think I told you earlier, I meant to go on a ride. It was such beautiful weather, but I got jealous. I saw all these other riders out there. So, but sometimes it happens. But did you get to ride?
I did.
Ah, man, I should have went. It was like perfect. It was definitely perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So like speaking of riding, yeah, let's, this is kind of a new thing, I think for all of us here, but like electric motorcycles in NYC. You see them everywhere now, but I don't think the laws have fully caught up yet, so to speak. But Mitch, if someone gets into a crash on an electric motorcycle or anything electric on two wheels, how does the law even classify the vehicle?
So first of all, you got to know whether the bike you're riding is a motorcycle or an electric bike. Typically, if it's going over 20 miles an hour, if it has over 750 watts, if it doesn't have pedal assist, meaning operable pedals that can move the bike, typically when you purchase it, whoever sells it to you should be aware that that's a bike that should be registered, should have license plates, and should come with insurance. Now, are there bikes and scooters on the road that should be registered and aren't? Yeah. There are electric and gas-powered ones that people don't have registered. But under the law, those are the guidelines that you should be aware of. If it doesn't go over 20 miles an hour and has operable pedals, it's a bicycle. Once you're going over 25 miles an hour and it doesn't have operable pedals, you're looking at a motorcycle and you should have registration and insurance. Now, that being said, once you have insurance, you need to get the minimum insurance in New York. The minimum insurance in New York is a 2550 policy. That means $25,000 per person and $50,000 per occurrence. So let's suppose the rider of the motorcycle has a passenger on the back and crashes into two pedestrians in a crosswalk. And the passenger on the back and the two pedestrians get very badly injured. The most anybody could get is $25,000, and the most three of them could get would be $50,000. So if they're all seriously injured, they don't get $25,000 each. They got to split up 50. 25 per person maximum 50 per accident. Now, if it's just one person that got injured, but the passenger's okay, the other pedestrian's okay, it's just one pedestrian, they could get 25. But they don't get 25 if nobody's injured. You need to show that you're injured to be entitled to that money. And maybe you're not that injured. Maybe it's just like a few scrapes. Maybe you don't get the 25. Maybe you only get 12. It depends on what your injuries are. Now, of course, there are larger limits available. So on my motorcycles, I have a $300,000 underlying policy. That's with insurance, and I'm not recommending any insurance. I don't sell insurance, but that's with one carrier. Then I have another insurance carrier that has an umbrella policy for an additional $5 million for each of my bikes. So on my bike, I got $5.3 million. Now, what's interesting is the higher limits typically don't cost as much as the lower limits, dollar for dollar, because you're typically not going to go into the higher limits on a claim. But that includes something called SUM and UM insurance. SUM stands for Supplemental Underinsured Motorist Coverage. So if
Okay.
I'm on my bike and I get hit by a car and that car only has 25, well, I could be compensated up to my own coverage for 5.3. I'm not stuck at 25 grand. Now, at the same rate, if you have a minimum and the vehicle that hit you has a minimum, you don't get both policies.
Okay.
In other states like Pennsylvania, they have a thing called stacking where you can get all the policies. In New York, no. If you don't have more than the other vehicle, you're stuck with the other vehicle's policy. So if somebody has 100,000 and they get hit by another vehicle that has 25, they get 25 from the other vehicle and 75 from their own carrier because it's up to the 100 deducting what the other vehicle has. And that's called supplemental underinsured motorist. Then there's uninsured motorist, means the vehicle that hit you didn't have any insurance at all. It's uninsured motorist. So if you get hit by a car that doesn't have any insurance, maybe the car's stolen. If you got 100,000 on your electric bike, you can get a recovery from your own vehicle. But if you got 100,000 on your car and you're riding around on your e-bike, you can't get that money from your car. But if you register the bike and you get insurance, you can get that money.
Excuse me. What I've noticed that like there are a lot of e-bikes there. You can't even register them. I mean, how do you even begin that journey if you can't register them?
Well, if it's a bicycle, you're not registering it.
Yeah.
There's legislation proposed where that's going to change.
Okay.
But it hasn't been signed by the governor. It's not law. So
yeah.
But if it's one of those vehicles that goes under 20 miles an hour and has pedal assist, it's a bicycle, and you might be able to be covered under your own vehicle's policy if you have a registered vehicle.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about in terms of lawsuits? I mean, are motorcycle riders still able to bring the same kind of injury claims as traditional motorcyclists?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Somebody fails to yield you right away, hits you and you're injured, you're entitled to compensation. You just got to get a qualified lawyer to help you out with that.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, do you have any examples? I don't know if you've had to, work with any types of cases like this, or even hypotheticals.
So I've had cases where my client was on an electric bicycle, and got hit in an intersection, and it was treated as a bicycle accident, and my client got compensated from the car that hit him. I've also had cases where my clients are on gas-powered and electric vehicles where they weren't registered and they should have been registered, and we got money from the other vehicle. Even though they didn't have the insurance they were supposed to have, we were still able to prove that didn't mean they were at fault for the accident, and they sustained injury. So under the law, they were entitled to compensation, even though they didn't have insurance. Even though they were riding illegally, we got them compensation. But you got to be careful if you're trying those cases, because a lot of times if you don't ask the right questions in jury selection, you get people that think just because you're riding illegally, you're not entitled to compensation. But I've tried those cases and won those cases. So they can be difficult cases, but even if you're riding illegally, you might still be entitled to compensation. Last of all, I've had cases where my clients had the minimum policies And I said, what kind of insurance do you have? And they say, I got full coverage, thinking they had great policies, but they were only the minimum. Full coverage just means you have theft and collision on there, which you get money for your property damage, but you don't get money for your injuries.
All right. Okay. Now, like with that, does that also count in terms of depreciation? If a e-bike, or regardless if it's under or over 20, does that affect the payout?
Most of these bikes aren't that expensive,
Okay.
so it's not a big claim for the property damage. A motorcycle could, of course, be very expensive.
Right.
But those are typically the gas powered, not the electric ones that are designed for different use.
Right.
Although there are some expensive electric motorcycles, they're just there are not that many of them out there.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a new, I guess, a new venture right nowadays. But I guess as we move forward, we'll be able to learn more. I guess that'll do for now, Mitch. Well, thank you again for yet another informative session with Mr. Mr. Mitch Broner. Guys, if you please don't forget, if you need our help, give us a call 24/7 at 1-800-321-1234, where consultations are free and confidential. Whether it's on our podcast or video broadcast, we really do appreciate you tuning in and taking the time. And please, if you haven't yet, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Like, share, and please subscribe so you get the latest updates. Now, before we go, Mitch, do you have anything else you want to add?
In addition to getting it registered and insured, if your bike goes over 25 miles per hour and doesn't have pedal assist, you should have an M endorsement on your license, which means you got to go through the process of getting a learner's permit. You need a licensed motorcycle rider to take you to the test, and you got to pass the test on your bike. And so obviously taking that test, you want to have a fully legal bike that's registered and insured as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yet again, more great advice. So thanks again, Mitch, for yet another informative session with you. And thank you all for checking us out. And please remember, we ride just like you. We'll see you next time, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.